everything in my power with the help of the doctors. We are going to help you through this. And that's the moment when I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes.
You're listening to Guards Down. This is Greg Washington.
Good morning, everyone. And I would say good afternoon because our special guest today is halfway around the world, Helene Rennervik. How are you this morning?
I'm well this afternoon.
See, good. And so tell us where you're coming from.
At the moment, I'm sitting in Stockholm, Sweden. And it's beginning of fall here. Beautiful season.
Indeed. It is so amazing. I never found myself being able to or imagining myself connecting to someone halfway around the world to talk about trauma and grief and how we heal. And so I really appreciate you coming on today and just being able to open up and share with us, your stories and what you went through. So thank you. And good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Well, good. Well, look, I want to get started. I want people to hear your voice and hear your story because, when we spoke before, you got me excited and fired up. And so I was just like, I can't wait to talk to you. And so I had to wait a whole week, just for us to get back on a call. So I appreciate that. So, of course, the episode is about trauma and grief and how different cultures view, treat, and overcome. And so I first just want to just kind of give you the floor and you tell your background about who you are and your family, and your experience with trauma and grief.
So I'm born and brought up here in Sweden, in Stockholm. And I lived here until I was 16 years old. And after that, I ventured out in the world. So first it started in Denmark, in Copenhagen, where I went to high school. And from there, I moved to London and went to an American college in London. And from there, I ventured for a little bit to the US for about 6 months. And from there onwards, I went and lived in the Middle East for over 25 years. And I raised a family there. I have 4 children. I have a granddaughter. And life is a journey. I have had several things happening. If I go back to when I was small, there's been things that has happened over the years. I learned maybe at a young age to try to be in the moment. I haven't really always reflected on that, but I know it must have been from my upbringing and how I grew up. My mom was a mother that always allowed us to ask questions, to know our feelings and express them. And I think that has helped me because what I had in my life, it's not finished and I might be getting more things. And when we face those hardship that we go through, we think, oh my God, how am I going to take myself through this? So like I told you, in February in 2015, that's when I was slapped with something really, really big.
Yeah. Well, before we get into that detail, I always like to ask, growing up, did your family, your parents, the people around you teach you how to deal with trauma and grief?
Not really. My mom and my dad, they separated when I was 6 years old. And again, my mom was very in touch with the feelings I was able to share with her, but maybe not everything. And that's something I have learned later on. What did it mean because I felt I was left by my dad. And that's really hard when you're 6 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
And when I was 10 years old, my sister, she died. And that was a really hard moment because I saw my mother, how she was obviously grieving her daughter, although my daughter was ill, and I know that she felt at peace when she was buried and everything. And that's something we spoke about. I was 10. Of course, you know what that is about. You know, when you're 10 years old, you lose your sister. And she said, you can always love her. And that's something I have learned. Even if we lose a loved one, they are not with us physically, but they can still be close in our heart. We can speak to them. And so I do believe, not maybe consciously, but I was allowed to express my feelings and know my feelings, know my emotions. You know, what are they?
Yeah. So can you kind of describe your family's, your culture and, religious background?
So in Sweden, Swedish people are very open, and I think that some people are not, they might believe, but they don't have a strong faith. I have a strong faith, and it's grown as I have grown older. And to believe in something more than yourself and your parents and something that is not tangible, it's just a belief in your mind. How can you do that even when you do go through these really, really hard time? That's what has helped me, when I can pray, not put words to everything. That's what has helped me as I have got older. So for me, my core value is faith, and faith for me is trust, honesty, and love. It is different for everyone. I can't say what is working for me would work for others, but that has helped me.
Got you. And man, so to experience grief, like at such a young age, 6 to feel like your father abandoned you, and then to lose your sister at 10, were you mentally aware back then how you are now of what was going on?
I think I have always had a very strong intuition, and I might not have been really aware of that and not grieving, because that has maybe come up later as I grew older. What did it mean to be left by your father? And now when I'm aware of it, I know what repercussion that could have later on. Mm-hmm. And I do know that my mom, she did everything to protect me. And as parents, we don't always know everything. And losing my sister, yes, that was hard. But then I had seen her growing up, being very sick. And my mom already told me that your sister is ill. And when she was 18 years old, she got a new heart, and her body didn't accept it. So it's about acceptance of circumstances. Yes, that's hard when you're younger, but maybe it's also a little bit easier, because I do believe at a younger age, we might be more open to changes.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I can definitely see where you're coming from on that aspect of you're still learning and figuring out life. And so as these different experiences come to you, you're taking them in a lot different than, what you may in later years, or as you become more aware, might feel. So I would agree with that. I would. So, when we look at trauma and grief, do you feel like there's a cultural difference in how people cope and deal with trauma and grief? It
might be how people are allowed to grieve, and, what what is there to help them to go through that. But I do believe that every human being is human. We are 99 point something the same, regardless from where we are in the world. And then it's just the allowance we could be living in the same country and, your family might be allowing different things, or are we projecting things on others? So I do believe it's culturally, it could be different in Sweden. Maybe people and families are not so close like they would be in the Mediterranean and in the Middle East. There's more families that they stick together. And here in Sweden, we are more individual. So I do believe that's different. The family could be both good and bad to have close by, because yes, of course, it's really important to have close one nearby you, but then it could also be, a little bit overwhelming. You have to explain everything.
Yeah. Okay. So with your experiences of dealing with trauma and grief, you spoke about your dad, you spoke about your sister. Can you also tell us about your son?
Yeah, my son. So my youngest son, today he's 15, but 2015 he was 9 years old, very happy, very athletic, running around, and wanted to become a professional football player, or in soccer, as you say in the US. And that was his dream. That's everything he wanted to do. And on 1st of February 2015, I get a call from school that Yousef has fallen down and he has broken his leg. That was something big, that he had broken his leg.
Yeah.
We took him to the hospital. He had to, it was a broken leg, so they had to put it in cast. He has to be at home. That was a big change to me, because none of my other children had actually broken they had broken an arm before, but not a leg before. And, it was it was a big change, when you're 9 years old, to, as a mother, have the child out of school. How am I going to bathe him? How am I going to get his homework done, and all these things? That was my worry at that time. I wasn't prepared for something else at that moment.
Yeah. And what was that something else that you had to get prepared for?
I don't think you can ever be prepared. My mom died from cancer, and that was really hard. And my sister, she got cancer. That was also very hard. She's a survivor. But when I was told, end of February, when Yousef had broken his leg again, that the doctors believed he had cancer. Until today, I feel it in my whole body. I have worked through this, but it's still, your son has got cancer. The first thing that came into my mind, he's going to die.
Man. It's one thing to have your parent to be diagnosed with cancer, to have a sibling be diagnosed with cancer, but to have your own child, be diagnosed with cancer and know the effects, the end result of having to deal with it. I know that puts you into a whole different mindset, because, as parents, we don't expect to outlive our kids. Right. So even the slightest fear of, the risk, just sends us into a whole different mindset and space. And so, please continue.
When I heard that, I stood there and I I just couldn't, it was just overwhelming. I didn't know. My thoughts were just racing, and I didn't know what to do. I was in a state of panic. My son is going to die. What am I going to do? And, I didn't know how to grab hold of my thoughts and, just come down. I was feeling that I was in a kind of a bubble, and I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know how to tell my son. He's the one who was there sick. He had no idea. At that moment, when you go through something like that, I was very lucky that my older daughter, so his sister, she's a play therapist. At that moment, I just needed someone to be there for me. And I'm so grateful that my older daughter was there for me, because I had no idea how am I going to tell my son that he has cancer. I had to come to terms with that. And she said, don't worry, Mama, I will be there. And she had to take, so she works with trauma all the time, that is parents and this, but she was also the daughter. She was also the sister. It's different when you're in it yourself than being professional about it. But she contacted her supervisor and said, because I said, how are we going to tell Yousef? She said, don't worry, Mama, I will find out. I will speak to her supervisor and ask her, what is the best way to tell a child? So that's what we had to do. I cried and I cried and I cried. I didn't show him. But, a child can kind of feel the energy.
Yeah.
So when we told him later on, because a 9-year-old they know. It's not like he's 4 or 3 when they don't know, but he knows. And he had seen already people in our family and friends that had cancer. The only thing we told him about the people who have lived, just for him to know that it is hope of survival. Because so Selena was telling him, that's his sister, and when he said, I don't want to hear anymore, he said, am I going to die? And she said, that's why we're in the hospital. That's why the doctors are here and they're taking tests, and we're going to find out and find a cure for your cancer. And he said, am I going to die again? And then he said, I don't want to hear anymore. And that's the time when you have to leave it. But she said, we are here, and we are here if you need any question, or if you have questions, ask us. Don't sit with them there. Ask us then.
Yeah. And to have to experience that, I gotta ask, like, what ways were you coping? So, talk about how you cope with your father leaving. How did you cope with your sister dying? And
my younger sister. My younger older sister. Yeah.
And how do you cope with, your son having cancer? Let's talk about coping, the bad coping or the unhealthy coping, and then the healthier coping techniques and tools.
I think in life, I was prepared for that moment, not knowingly, but I think life prepared me to be there at that moment. I had gone through these things and I had learned how to cope over the years. Maybe not consciously, but I had learned. There was more thing. There was other things that happened in my life before that too. But at that moment, I didn't know how to cope with that. I had no idea how I was going to cope with that. I was thinking at the moment, I was just worrying about where am I going to take him? Because in the country where I lived, in the United Arab Emirates, in Dubai, the doctor there said, go home. And I'm like, I am home. This is my home. It's been my home for 25 years. Where shall I go? Go home. Because with children's cancer, it's not that explored yet. You can't give a child the same treatment as a adult.
Yeah.
And he told me to go home. And I'm like, well, where? Well, go to Sweden. And I'm like, which doctor do I go to? It's just different. Today, I would have done it differently, but when I don't know, so I put everyone in my family, okay, where do we go? Where's the best doctors go? Let's find that doctor. And at that time, because I asked the doctor, where would you take your child? And he said, Germany. Okay, I will find a doctor in Germany then. And that's what we did. So the whole process there was not just my son having cancer. I had to leave my children. I had to leave my home. He had to leave what he knew. I mean, he didn't know anything else. And we had to go to a country that we didn't know.
Man. So here you are having to uproot your family and move to a whole nother country. Was there a language barrier as well when you moved?
So when I was younger, I had studied German. In Sweden, we have another language that's Swedish. I had studied German, but not that I was fluent. I mean, it's a different way to go. I mean, that was, when I had, before high school, I studied German and in high school, but it was not there as a language where you're again going to speak in, medical terms, because that's different than just going to the supermarket and getting, a packet of bread or whatever, that's different. So yeah, it was. I mean, luckily in Germany, they also speak English. Mm-hmm. And the language came later on anyway. I mean, then I started getting it back. But that wasn't the end of the journey. We actually returned to Sweden, and that's why I'm here now, and that's where I'm living now.
Yeah. So is that what you said? You would have done things differently? You would have stayed in Sweden?
No. If I would have known at that time, if that would happen to someone, I would tell them then go to Sweden right away. You go to the emergency, and then they take you through. I didn't do it that way because in Dubai, you would go and search for a doctor that, is specialized in that. But today I know if I'm here in Sweden, I just go to the emergency and there will be a doctor there, or they will refer you to somewhere else. And I'm very grateful and I'm very thankful that I have a country where they have all the medical expertise, because what if I was not from a country like that?
Yeah. So what was the outcome?
The outcome was that the only way to treat him was to take away the tumor. It was a huge tumor in his leg, on his femur bone. And so he would go through chemotherapy and he would have to take away the tumor, which meant that he might lose his leg.
My goodness. And there wasn't any other option before that, huh?
I wanted it to be because I like alternative medicine, and I tried. But then again, you can't do that. You have to go through. This is the only way. If they're going to treat you in a hospital, okay, the doctors have to be there. It's something called osteosarcoma, so it's in the bone, and for it not to spread, they have to take out the tumor, and they might have to amputate the leg. So, of course, it's overwhelming. I mean, your son is not going to have a leg. And he heard that the doctor said, so first he had 3 months chemotherapy, and then that would be, and, the surgeon said, we don't know, but that was in Germany. We don't know if we can save his leg. That will only be known during the operation. However, when I came to Sweden, the surgeon was so sure. He never mentioned that. So we actually came to Sweden, to Stockholm, before he started before he was going to have the operation, because I learned that it's going to take a long time. It's not just going through the chemotherapy and having, his leg possibly amputated, or, then it's going to continue with more chemotherapy. And after that, it could still be continuing. And then you have to continue the follow-up treatment. And, so it was a long treatment. I mean, today he's really lucky. He has his leg, although it's a prosthetic within his own leg. So you can't really tell that he has a prosthetic because it's inside his leg, and that's a prosthetic that is being lengthened. But it's not his leg. I mean, yes, it's his leg outside, but inside he has metal.
Man. So for you, for your family, for him, when you found out that news, take us through what y'all were feeling, thoughts, actions that, you know, that what y'all were dealing with.
I didn't really know because everything was so new. But the first night when he got his chemotherapy, the treatment, it was like 2 days after, and he said, "Mama, I can't do this." He was so sick. He was so sick. I've never seen anything. I didn't know what to do. I mean, it's just, as a mother, as a father, when you see your child as sitting there and say, "I can't do it." And I asked him, "Yousef, do you want to die?" And he took a pause. I mean, a 9-year-old sitting there in bed and vomiting, and, you know, everything is just going through your body. He said, "No." I said, "Okay." I just wanted to hear him. He wants to fight. He wants to fight this because that's what he is. He's a fighter. He's a fighter. He was fighting this cancer. He had to say, "I want to live." And I told him, "I'm going to do everything in my power with the help of the doctors. We are going to help you through this." And that's the moment when I said, "I'm going to do whatever it takes, whatever hurdles is going to come to me. I am going to find within all my power." I got so much strength. I have no idea where I got the strength for. Even when we came here to Sweden, you know, so he was sitting in a wheelchair. And when we came here, I stayed with my father, and to get up to the building where he lives, there's stairs. And he was in a wheelchair, and I thought, how am I going to get him up there? I carried him all the time up. I got the strength all the time. Nothing stopped me. And during the whole time, I mean, most of the time we were in the hospital, I never got sick. I mean, people are like, and I was there alone because his father returned from Germany to Dubai, just, you know, to help us financially, because I couldn't work. I had to be with my son. But, you know, you can find the strength. It's just a choice. I made that choice. I am not going to give up. I am not going to give up. Every day I found something small. It might be, I didn't look so much ahead. I just looked at that moment to gain the strength, because that's all I had. I only had that time with him. I didn't want to waste it on being worried. Was I worried? Yes, of course I was worried. Did I cry? Yes, I cried, but not always in front of him, because then he would feel like I'm putting my mom through this. Mm-hmm. And I know he did. To this day, I know he goes into his mind and he thinks, am I going to get this back?
Yeah. So you talk about the support that he needed, because, you know, he was dealing with, you know, the loss of his leg. What about you? Because you asked him, did he want to live? For you to be his mom and to have to go through this, did you want to give up on on yourself, on your family that you created?
No, never. I didn't want to give up. I just didn't want to give up to anything, even in the hospital. I tried, because, you know, when I said, I tried to see every moment and find something beautiful in that and just be happy for that time. Because sometimes we do take our children maybe for granted because we think we are going to outlive them. Mm-hmm. No, the other way around. The other way around. That they are always going to be there. But that's not true. And I couldn't give up. I was the core for my whole family. I mean, I had 3 other kids that were going through their things, and their mother wasn't there. I know it was extremely hard for them. The day when Yousef had his operation, his older sister was graduating, and she said, how can I go and celebrate when my son, my brother is having a life-threatening operation? And I said, baby, you go and celebrate, because that's what life is. Sometimes we celebrate and sometimes we have sorrow. But it wasn't sorrow yet.
Yeah.
It was not. I didn't give up. But when I did say goodbye to him in that room, I said goodbye. I said goodbye when he was put to sleep there. He had been put to sleep many times, but that time I said goodbye to him. Not thinking that I would not meet him again, but it would be okay. I didn't want to go there, but I just wanted to remember that moment as a beautiful moment.
Yeah. As if kind of like that was the last time that you were going to see him as him who he is. Like when he woke up the next time, things were going to be different.
Not only that, but what if they couldn't save him during that time?
Yeah.
But even during that time when he had the operation, so Yousef and I, we do exercise that I share in my book called the Trouble Tree. And that's putting off your trouble. I mean, it's kind of a meditation and you go through, but it's a really, really powerful story meditation you can do. So he put off his trouble, whatever it is. But I asked him just before he was falling asleep, so baby, what are you going to dream about? He said, I'm going to dream about me and my German Shepherd walking. Well, if you read my book, during those next 4 hours, during that moment when I sat in the park, I looked out over the field, I saw a young man walking with his German Shepherd. And I'm like, I'm in Yousef's dream. He is going to walk. It was just, wow. I had not got the surgeon had not called me, but he gave me so much hope. I didn't know how I was going to see him or this, but I saw this young man in the distance walking there with his German Shepherd. It gave me so much hope in that moment. And I didn't know that an hour after that, the surgeon called and said, we have finished the operation. The operation has gone well. And then, of course, he has to wake up and this. And, it's not just having the operation is what's going to happen afterwards. But it gave me hope. So your mind, your thoughts, your words, and everything is so powerful. So powerful. And that's why, I didn't know, am I seeing, am I dreaming? I pinched myself, but I took a picture of that moment. So I would never, it must be true. I didn't know, I didn't have anyone around me. Is this true what I'm seeing? But I thought if I take it on my phone, it will be true. Yeah. It was true. It was a picture there. It was a person walking there. And I pinched myself. That's why I chose that for my cover of my book. Because it was like a dream. And I learned so much during this whole time. I never knew I was going to write a book. I didn't know what was going to come through after. But our thoughts and our choice to choose our thoughts can really help us so much. And not to give up on hope, not whatever it is, not to give up on hope, even in these really, really difficult moments. Just to know that there is a moment after this.
Yeah. It's so inspiring and inspirational to hear you talk. And it makes me wonder, did you have any any hard moments of coping with this? Was there any destructive behavior, coping behaviors?
it was really difficult moments. I had to push myself to do things that I have never done before. I had to become his nurse. I had to give him injections, and I had to give it on time. I got so angry one time. So in Germany, I had to go away after they have to do kind of a flushing for 3 days. And I had to be the tough person he refused to take the injections. I'm like, you have to take them right now. Because I didn't know what was going to happen if he didn't take them. And I was so angry, I almost, you have to take them. I got so angry with him, so angry. And afterwards, I'm like, how can I become so angry with him? But it was just like, I felt like it was a life and death. If he doesn't take it, he has to flush this poison that was in his body out. When I came to Sweden later on and they did that in the hospital, I'm like, you're not going to send me home. You're not going to send me home with my son. So I have to take care of this, because it was terrible. It was terrible to be angry with somebody who's sick, but I had to do it because there was nobody else to do it. There was nobody else to do it. I had to do it. I felt like a horrible mother. And because I couldn't reason with him. It had to be taken on that time. So he refused, like a child can do. But it was not just about the normal medicine. It had to be done on that time. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And I felt terrible. I felt really terrible.
Yeah. With that, I want to talk about that a little more, right? The feelings of feeling frustrated or angry or fatigued for caring for someone. How did you re-energize yourself, and how did you make amends with Yousef?
So I always tell my children, I'm always trying to be good enough mother. I'm not the best. I can be a horrible mother. And that was a moment when I felt like a really, really horrible mother. And it was fear. It was not anger. It was fear. And that's fear of him not taking it, what could happen then. And because before that I had learned what are my emotions? So I could come across angry, but I wasn't angry. And I told him, I'm not angry with you afterwards. During that moment, I couldn't, because he had to take it.
Yeah.
I called his dad and I said, I don't know what to do. He has to take it, okay, take him back to the hospital. But if I'm going to go to the hospital, it's going to take time and this. And they were like, oh, yes, give it to him. But he refused to take it. So what am I going to do? And then he got it. Then he got much better. But everything was new for him too. Everything was new, both for him and for me. Later on, we found ways of coping, how to give him injections and this. And he was so good. He was so good. He made it easy for me.
Yeah. What was the toughest part of your journey with all of this?
The toughest was the unknown. Not knowing, is that going to help? Is the operation going to go through? Because, as it was going, I wanted to know what's happening next. And the doctors just take step by step. Yes. And that's true. Because if I'm going to go forward and look what is going to happen and maybe this and maybe that, no. It's better just to be in the moment and not think about all the things that could go wrong. Think about moment by moment. And that's what I did every day, to look at the small things, his smile, us being together, us being able to have breakfast together, cooking for him, just him able to eat. Because at times he couldn't eat. He had big blisters in his mouth and he couldn't eat. He was so sick. He was so nauseous. But it was just those small moments that don't take anything for granted. Nothing. Even being happy with, I learned to live in a suitcase. It's possible. I had a very comfortable life in Dubai. I had everything. And before I left there, I was worried about what this and what that and my home and this and what. That didn't matter. Even today, because that can be acquired again. But the moments with your loved ones might not ever be relived again. That's why now I have made a different way of living. If my father was ill and he got a stroke a month ago, I made that decision to be with him during that time because I don't know how much time I have with him. And, today he's well, but, I always choose that. If one of my other children would get sick, okay, I will find a way to go and be with them because those moments will never come back again. Even you and I having this conversation right now, that's not going to come back. So I always welcome, because I know that you do so much to help others. I welcome that. And I know my vision today. And my vision is I desire to create a positive difference in this world by inspiring people to be the best version of themselves. Whenever that comes in, that is something I have to make time for every day, regardless what that is. Maybe a smile to someone outside or helping someone that moment, because after this journey, I changed my life and I appreciate every day, every moment. I reflect often. I don't take tomorrow for granted. When I go to sleep, I look at, okay, what did I do today towards my vision of making and helping that other person to be the best version of themselves, regardless how that is. I don't know how it is. It shows up in different ways. And then when I wake up in the morning, if I can breathe, I have a lot to be grateful to. If I can move and blink my eyes, I have even more to be grateful for. If I can move my arms, I have even more. If I can stand up on the floor, I have more. So I look at these things. I have water to drink. In other countries, they might not have fresh water to drink. So when you start to see these things that, you and I living in America and Sweden, that are really, maybe a lot of people suffer in these countries too, of course they do, but we have much more than others do. And even during this time, during Corona, I'm so grateful that I'm living here in Sweden because I have been able to go out in nature, and nature is something that has helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Yes, I did see that before. But living in the Middle East, which is a desert, then I loved the ocean, the beach, and this. But now when I'm here, I have trees, I have the greenery to go out with. Not everyone has that. One of my child lives in the Middle East, has not been able to go out now during this time, because this time is also extremely hard for people. There are a lot of people that are suffering now because they are alone.
Yeah. Man, you have such a positive and powerful outlook on life. It makes me wonder, did you get any help? Did you see a therapist or anyone to kind of help you get through, what you went through, and to kind of help reset or change your perception or focus on life?
I think I've always had that. So one of my strengths first is positivity. The next one is empathy. That has always been there, although now I have learned that. So we all have strength or talents, we can call them, or, when we lean into them more. So I leaned into it more, so it helped me more. And, a lot of people might say, oh, but you can't just be positive all the time. And yeah, I get that. I use questions. So and that's from other modalities that I had learned before this, to ask questions, but not to go into the answer of the question, because then we will probably be disappointed because things doesn't usually turn out exactly to the 100% as we see it. So a question is not knowing how it's going to turn out. So I will ask, what else is possible? And then I wait, even if it's good or if it's bad. And if somebody's saying, okay, what's wrong with you? Okay, what's right with this that I'm not getting? Because then we turn it, and even if I'm feeling so down, okay, what can I do now? What else is possible in this moment? And then maybe things are coming to you, and then welcome this. Maybe it's not how you thought how it would turn out or how it should be because, we have put into our mind, but that's only comparing it to the past. We have no idea how tomorrow is going to look like. At all. None of us. We really do not. We can plan it. And I have been a planner, but we don't. So when we live in this unknown and just trust, so that's where my faith come in. Mm-hmm. I trust that whatever is going to happen, that is my destiny. And it could turn in another way. And that's why, okay, do I choose this or do I choose that? I still believe that, our destiny is there, but I have the choice to choose. I could have sat there and I could have cried and I could have become depressed, but it wouldn't just have affected me. It would have affected my son, who would have become depressed, and maybe that wouldn't have helped him through to heal. It would have affected my other children. It would have everyone around us.
Yeah. It's so powerful. I mean, you hit on every aspect of being a mom and just loving your family and the sacrifice that a mom would do for her family. And so, I mean, I just truly commend you, for being that rock, that stronghold, because I have kids and I can't even imagine, what it would feel like to go through that.
But we do get strength. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've heard people, they do this and that, and I'm small, but I got so much strength. And not even, I was living in the hospital most of the time, but I didn't get sick. So I do believe, and that's why now, that's what I have taken hold of. So you asked me, did I get help? Yes, there were psychologists in the hospital and this, and I spoke to different people, but keeping my mind open and keeping it positive to always find ways of coping, and having my family, my children are very close to me, and they gave me strength. They gave me hope. I didn't want to give up hope for them either. So we supported each other. And then after Yousef finished his treatment, yes, I worked with a coach. And that's the time when I started feeling, I think I want to go and do this too. It's not that as a coach, I've always been interested in psychology and this and living healthy, and these things help. Exercising, yes, this help also, just to relieve that stress. But the most important is your mind. That is, your mind is so powerful. Your words are so powerful. Your thoughts are so powerful. So if you let those, they can easily take over. And I think it eased my pain, my whatever I was going through, because I tried to see something positive. And again, that was, it's different for everyone. I can't tell everyone that it's going to be like that. I saw parents in different ways, and there's nothing that is right or wrong, and I'm so strong and this. No, I'm just me. This is what worked for me. And I hope that's why in the end I wrote my book, because it helped me. It's not just our journey. I give exercises that help me, but everyone is going to cope in a different way. And it's allowing yourself to not compare yourself with anyone else. And also I said, never give up, never give in, and never quit.
Indeed. Let's talk about your book for a minute.
So my book, I started writing that in 2017. I had no idea how to write. I had not written down anything. And I tried so many different ways. And then I took another coach. I was going through my coach first to write this book and this and whatever. And I structured it but it didn't happen. I had no idea how am I going to do this. So I looked for a coach to help me to write this book. And she allowed me to go into myself, to breathe, to not have any way of it. My book just came out. It came out from inside me. I remembered things. She helped me finding those ways that I had, gone through. They were very vivid. Because I had taken time during that time to pause. I took a picture of just a little flower I saw and how that made me happy during that time. Something I ate or something, that's the thing. If we stop and we reflect and we allow ourselves, I allowed myself to be very sad during that time. I allowed myself to have terrible thoughts. I shared that in my book. Because if we just hold back those terrible thoughts, parents and I could also, would it be easier for him when I asked him, would you like to die? It's not that I would have liked him to die, but that was thoughts. I couldn't see my son suffering like that. Is he going to go through this and suffer like that? I don't know. I didn't think, what would I do if he said, oh, I don't want to live? I didn't think about that. It was just moment by moment. So she brought all those emotions, those feelings, those thoughts out of me. But it was not just our journey. I wanted each chapter to share something that you could do. And so the book became a book that is not just for parents with children that are going through cancer. That book today, during this unknown period that we are in now, that can help because we are living in an unknown time. But that is actually our lives. It's just that we have said, okay, this is how normal is. What is normal? Normal for you, normal for me is different for someone else. So, we can live in circumstances that are not very pleasant and that becomes normal. So, obviously that's not what we would like to live in. But I hear a lot of people saying, okay, when it goes back to normal, but what if this is what it's going to be? So, because whatever has happened in the past is not happening now, and it's not going to happen 100% like that. Of course, we would like it to be better, that we can all have jobs and, all these things. But what if it's not? Yeah. Then we only have this moment right now. And if we're going to choose to live in a moment of fear, of anger, of sadness, that's all we know. Because I also think that if we have not experienced sadness, we don't really know what happiness is. If we are only going to live happy and this all the time, do we know then what happiness is? And it's not, some people go through much worse things than me, much worse things than me, and they pull through. And there are people like would say, oh my God, how did you go through it? Because they have not experienced that. But it's not meaning that what they're going through right now, somebody who have lost their job, that will be a terrible thing if you have never lost a job before. Or if you cannot go, all of a sudden you have to work from home and you have no way of seeing anyone else. You're alone. So these are terrible times, but it's just to, okay, what can I do during this time then? And people are out there. If we ask other people for help, most people like to help others, not to be afraid of asking or being vulnerable. Vulnerable is not showing your hurt, showing that you're sad, but not to stay there all the time, because then it gets harder and harder. The more you go down, it gets harder. I lost a friend 10 days ago. And the way I lost my friend, I haven't lost a friend like that. And that was very hard. That was very, very hard. How I dealt with it, I prayed, I cried. I didn't always choose to speak to people because I didn't have words all the time. So life is still throwing me new things that I have to deal with, and I don't know how I'm going to deal with it, because you can never be prepared for something that has not happened before.
Yeah. Man, I like how you speak and how you say it. You have to allow yourself to go through the grieving process. You got to allow yourself to feel and go through those emotions. And you're not going to know what's going to be thrown at you. You just got to be grateful for the things that you still have. And so I'm very grateful for you for being able to just take this time out and have a conversation with you about this. And, you opening up and sharing, about your family and your struggles and what you went through. So I really appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. It's how I like to share and make it a little bit, if it can make it a little bit easier for someone. Yes, that's what I like to do. And, we all find strength in different ways. And, we can share what we have gone through, what helped us. So I never gave up hope, and I found ways of coping.
Yeah. Never give up hope and find your way of coping, your healthy way of coping.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, I want to end on that note. Thank you so much for coming on and talking and sharing. I mean, just listening to you after this, I'm going to take some time to reflect, myself. And so I appreciate you. So I'll give you any last words of wisdom or encouragement that you want to share before we sign out.
That everyone is unique, whatever that is, whoever you are. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Be you and be in the moment and reflect often and be grateful for the things you have. Sometimes I also say I'm grateful for the things I don't have, because that makes me do more, so I can experience more. I mean, that's it. Be you and be happy with who you are and be grateful.
Indeed. Well, thank you. I hope all of y'all out there got a couple of tools and some inspiration and hope to help you fight another day. Some tools to put in your toolkit. Thank you so much, Helene, for coming. And for all y'all out there, that are tuning in and listening, stay safe for one, stay focused, and stay engaged, and most importantly, stay inspired. All right, we're out.
You've been listening to Guards Down with Greg Washington. PTSD and complicated grief are very real. About 8 out of every 100 people will have PTSD at some point in their lives. About 20 to 54% of people with complicated grief will simultaneously suffer from major depressive disorder. And that's why shows like this are hugely important, raising awareness for PTSD and complicated grief. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hook up with us at guardsdown.com. We are iron.org. On Facebook at Guards Down. And find us on YouTube and Instagram.